The night sky was calm, but inside NASA's control room, the air was heavy with tension. Dozens of scientists stared at glowing screens, their eyes wide, their hands frozen above keyboards. They had seen strange things before: comets, black holes, supernova. But tonight was different. Something impossible had appeared in the Andromeda Galaxy. Something no human had ever dreamed of finding for real. At first, it was only a shadow, a dark circle that blocked the light of a star. The telescopes picked it up by accident, as if the universe wanted them to see it. Dr. Marcus Lee, one of NASA's senior astronomers, leaned closer to the monitor, his voice shaking as he whispered, "This is not a planet. It's not natural." The room went silent, everyone listening, everyone waiting. The shadow was too big, too perfect, too sharp. It looked like a wall around the star. The computers began to measure its size. The numbers shocked the entire team. This object was not the size of a planet, not even the size of a sun. It was bigger, much bigger. It was the size of an entire solar system. One scientist dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but no one looked down. All eyes stayed locked on the screens. They knew what it was. They had all read about it in theory, in science fiction books and research papers. It was something called a Dyson Sphere, a megastructure built around a star to capture its energy. But that was only an idea, a human dream. No one believed it could exist. Yet here it was, real, solid, blocking the light of a star millions of light years away. The room filled with nervous whispers, some of excitement, some of fear. Dr. Lee pressed his hand against his forehead, trying to calm his thoughts. If someone had built this, then they were far, far ahead of human technology. If someone had built this, then humanity was not alone. The very thought sent chills across the room. Some scientists smiled nervously. Others trembled. One woman muttered, "We are too small for this. We should not have seen this." Outside the NASA building, the night went on, as usual. Cars passed, people laughed, children played. No one knew what was happening inside those walls. But for the scientists, the world had already changed forever. The data kept coming in. Infrared scans showed massive energy output. The object was not just sitting in space, it was working. It was alive with movement. Giant panels shifting, opening and closing. It looked like a machine breathing, a heart beating, a monster waking every few minutes. The sphere dimmed the star inside, and then brightened again. The light pulsed across space like a warning, like a signal. The scientists recorded everything, but they did not understand what they were seeing. Was this just energy collection? Or was it something more, something darker? No one dared to say it aloud, but everyone thought the same thing. What if this was not a machine of progress, but a weapon? Dr. Lee turned to the team, his face pale, his lips dry. "We must keep this secret," he said. "The world is not ready." But secrets do not last, especially not secrets this big. Already, signals leaked out to other observatories. Already rumors began to spread within hours. A scientist in Europe sent an email to a colleague in Japan. Within a day, the whispers reached the internet. The word Dyson Sphere appeared in online forums, in late-night conversations, in conspiracy channels. People laughed at first, calling it fake news, another internet hoax. But then, NASA made a mistake, a slip. They released a press note about unusual star behavior. The truth was out, and the world began to pay attention. In a small town in Texas, a boy pointed at the stars and asked his mother, "Is something eating the light?" The mother smiled weakly, but inside she felt a shiver. She had seen the news too. Meanwhile, back at NASA, the scientists could not stop watching. The sphere seemed to shift again, like a curtain moving across a window. This time, the star behind it flickered weaker. One man gasped, "It's not only collecting light, straining it." The room went quiet again. Fear spread like fire in their hearts. "Okay, If the Dyson Sphere was feeding, then how long before it needed more? Would it move? Would it search for new stars? Would it one day look toward the Milky Way? The thought was unbearable. No one in the room spoke for several minutes. Only the sound of machines filled the air. Finally, Dr. Lee broke the silence. "This is the most important discovery in human history," he said slowly. "And it may also be our greatest danger." The scientists looked again at the glowing screen. The black circle of the Dyson Sphere stood there like a giant eye in the universe. Watching, waiting, hiding secrets older than mankind and deep inside. Every human heart that heard the news asked the same question. What is it doing, and will it ever come for us? The discovery of the Dyson Sphere shook the world at first. People argued if it was real or not. Some called it science fiction. Others said it was a trick of light, but deep inside NASA. The scientists knew it was no mistake. The data was clear. The numbers were real. Something massive, something unnatural, was alive in the Andromeda Galaxy. Weeks passed. And the Dyson Sphere kept sending signals. Strange pulses of energy moved across space. Reaching Earth's telescopes like whispers from another world, the signals were not random. They had rhythm. A pattern like a heartbeat. Dr. Marcus Lee stayed awake night after night. Listening, recording, studying. Every beat felt heavier, like the sound of something waking up. Then came the first horror. The star inside the Dyson Sphere flickered again. But this time, it went completely dark. For a moment, an entire sun was gone, as if swallowed, as if drained to the last drop. The room at NASA filled with gasps. Someone cried out, "The star is dead." The screens showed a black void where once there was light. A silence heavier than death filled the control room. Another scientist, Dr. Helen Ruiz, covered her mouth with trembling hands. "It's feeding," she whispered. "The sphere is eating stars." Her words spread like poison in the air. No one wanted to believe it, but everyone knew it was true. The Dyson Sphere was not just collecting energy. It was devouring suns, destroying them one by one. Within days, 2 more stars near the structure went out. Astronomers across the world confirmed it. The pattern was real. The destruction was real. News channels exploded with fear. Headlines screamed, "Alien machine destroys stars." People in cities gathered in streets, staring at the night sky with terror. Priests called it Judgment Day. Politicians called it a threat. But no one had answers. No one had control. In one leaked video from NASA, a young scientist whispered to the camera, "This is not technology. It's something alive." The video spread online like wildfire. Shared millions of times, people stared at the screen, listening to the voice shaking with fear. It is not building, it is feeding. And if it feeds, it will look for more. It will not stop. Governments panicked behind closed doors. Secret meetings were held. Leaders whispered about weapons, about escape, about survival. But how could Earth fight something bigger than a star? How could humanity defend itself against a structure the size of a solar system? The more they thought, the smaller they felt. Like ants staring at a storm. For ordinary people, life changed overnight in schools. Children asked their teachers, "Will it come here?" In homes, parents sat silent, holding their children tighter at night. Social media filled with fear. Conspiracy theories spread. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a god. But all agreed on one thing. The stars were dying, and nothing could stop it. Back at NASA, the team tried to stay calm, but their faces told the truth. Every day, they watched more data, more signals, more death. The Dyson Sphere was growing stronger, brighter, hungrier. Its pulses reached Earth's machines like a voice across the darkness. Dr. Lee listened carefully, and one night, he realized the pattern was changing. It was not just a heartbeat anymore. It was a message. He called the team together, their eyes bloodshot, their hands shaking, on the screen. The signals turned into lines, then shapes, then repeating codes. It's communication. Dr. Lee whispered, "It's speaking," but no one could understand the language. The codes were alien, too complex, too cold still. Every scientist in the room felt the same thing. It was not calling for peace. It was warning. As days passed, strange things began to happen. Some satellites in Earth's orbit shut down without reason. Signals were scrambled, machines failed, telescopes went blind for seconds at a time. It felt as if something was watching, reaching across the void. Touching Earth's technology, one engineer cried out in fear. "It knows we are looking at it." The fear spread beyond NASA now. People began building bunkers. Survival stores ran out of supplies. The rich fled to hidden places, while the poor prayed in crowded churches. The world was splitting between hope and despair, and yet no one could look away. Every night, millions stared at the sky, wondering if the light above them would vanish next. In a small apartment, an old man whispered to his grandson, "When stars die, we die too. Never forget that." The child looked out the window, his eyes wide. His small hands shaking, he could not understand science, but he understood fear. Back at NASA, the final blow came. One night, a probe sent near the Andromeda Galaxy transmitted a last image. The screen showed the Dyson Sphere shifting, opening like a mouth. A bright glow erupted, and the probe signal ended in static. The message spread faster than fire. "We are coming." Those 3 words echoed across every corner of Earth. Some said it was a hoax. Others said it was mistranslation. But deep inside, people felt the truth. A cold shadow settled over humanity. In the city's panic grew. Shops were stormed, shelves emptied. Survival kits sold out within hours. People carried boxes of food, batteries, and water bottles, their faces pale with fear. Bunkers and underground shelters became gold. The rich bought them all, while the poor were left to pray. Airports were filled with chaos as rumors spread of secret flights to safe zones everywhere. Humanity was running, but no one knew where to hide. News channels played the same footage again and again. The Dyson Sphere draining stars, the static-filled signal, the terrible hum. Priests stood on street corners, shouting that Judgment Day had come. Scientists tried to calm the public, but their trembling voices only added more fear. One anchor on live television broke down in tears, saying, "If they can eat stars, what chance do we have?" Families gathered at night, sitting together. In silence, children asked questions parents could not answer. Will they take our son? Will Earth disappear too? The parents hugged their children tighter, whispering lies of comfort they themselves did not believe. Some cried quietly so their children would not see. The fear was not just about death. It was about the unknown. The unstoppable. Social media turned into a battlefield. Some posted videos of survival tips, teaching how to live underground. Others spread wild theories, claiming the Dyson Sphere was God's punishment. A few tried to joke, but their laughter sounded hollow. And then there were the doomsday groups, calling for people to abandon cities, to leave everything behind. Within days, highways were clogged with cars. Entire towns emptying like sand slipping from a broken jar. In the mountains, people dug caves deeper, preparing for eternal night. In deserts, men built hidden camps, carrying weapons and fuel. The world was no longer one planet. It was billions of frightened hearts beating faster and faster. And yet, no matter how they ran, they could not escape the truth. The stars were dying, and their own sun might be next. Inside NASA, the scientists watched this collapse with heavy hearts. Dr. Marcus Lee stared at his reflection in the window, his eyes hollow. He had dedicated his life to discovery. But now, his discovery had broken the world. Dr. Helen Ruiz whispered to him late at night, "We should have kept silent. We should never have told them," but even she knew the lie would not have lasted. The truth was too big to hide. Governments tried to act strong. They held press conferences, promising protection, promising safety. But behind the cameras, leaders were terrified. Military forces were moved, satellites repositioned, plans whispered in secret rooms. Some spoke of building arcs to escape into space. Others of weapons powerful enough to fight. But the Dyson Sphere was larger than imagination, larger than hope. One general shouted in frustration, "How do you shoot something that eats stars?" For ordinary people, daily life turned into survival. Drills children carried backpacks filled with supplies to school. Hospitals overflowed with people suffering panic attacks and fear. Psychologists worked day and night, but no words could stop the growing terror. It was not just fear of death. It was fear of being powerless, of being nothing in front of something so great in a small village in India. An old woman sat under the night sky. She watched the stars fade and whispered, "We lived by their light. Now we will die in their silence." Her grandchildren held her hands. Asking her to tell stories, she spoke of gods, of protectors. But her voice broke as she looked up, for even myths could not fight this enemy. Meanwhile, across the oceans, strange cults began to rise. They believed the Dyson Sphere was a god, a bringer of truth. They welcomed its coming. Chanting prayers to the dark, some gave away their possessions. Some disappeared into forests, never to be seen again. Hope was cracking, sanity was breaking, humanity was splitting into pieces. But not everyone gave up. Some people began to fight back in their own way. Small groups of engineers and scientists gathered in secret, determined to build something. Anything. We will not just wait to die, they said. We must try. They had no clear plan. No clear power, but they had courage. It was a thin spark of light in a sea of darkness. Still, the fear was stronger. Every night, the Dyson Sphere pulsed, sending signals across the void every night. Telescopes caught more stars vanishing. And every night, humanity felt smaller, weaker, closer to its end in one home. A young boy looked at his father and asked, "Why can't we fight them? Why can't we stop them?" The father had no answer. Only silence, his tears hidden in the dark, for, in his heart, he knew the truth. The Dyson Sphere was not just an alien machine, it was a predator. And predators never stop until they have finished the hunt. The world waited, the fear grew, the hope shrank. And above them all, the Dyson Sphere continued to feed. Silent, patient, unstoppable, its shadow stretched across galaxies. And soon, it would fall on Earth. The world was drowning in fear. But inside NASA, silence ruled the halls. Meetings stretched late into the night. Men and women argued until their voices cracked. Some said nothing could be done, that humanity should simply accept its fate. Others shouted that they must act, that sitting still was death itself. At last, a plan was made. A mission dangerous and almost impossible. But the only chance to learn the truth, a crew would be sent into the darkness, closer to the Dyson Sphere than any human had ever gone, not to fight, not to win, but to see, to understand, to return with answers. They called it Project Dawn, though many whispered it was a journey into eternal night. The chosen astronauts were the best. Captain Elias Ward, a veteran pilot known for his calm under pressure. Dr. Sarah Monroe, a brilliant astrophysicist whose theories had once been mocked, but now were humanity's only hope. Engineer Tomas Reed, a quiet man whose hands could fix anything, and Dr. Aisha Karim, a psychologist, chosen to keep the crew's minds steady in the face of the unknown. Their ship was small but strong. The Odyssey, built in secret, designed for one purpose: to carry them beyond fear, into the heart of the void. It was armed not with weapons, but with cameras, sensors, and transmitters. Every moment would be sent back to Earth, every discovery watched by millions of terrified eyes. On launch day, the world held its breath. Crowds gathered around screens, children clutched their parents. Soldiers saluted as the rockets stood ready. The sky shook as fire roared beneath it. The ship rose into the heavens. A thin line of hope in a sea of despair. Voices whispered prayers. Tears streamed down faces. For some, it was faith. For others, it was goodbye. Days turned into weeks as the Odyssey traveled deeper into space. At first, the crew was calm, speaking often to mission control, sharing jokes to hide their fear. But as the Dyson Sphere grew larger in their view, laughter died. Silence grew. The structure filled the windows like a nightmare. A dark wall stretching across infinity. Dr. Monroe stared at it for hours, her lips trembling. "This is not a machine," she said softly. "It's a world, a monster wearing the skin of a star." The crew began to hear things, a low hum in the metal walls, a vibration that no instrument could explain. At night, Elias Ward dreamed of shadows moving, voices whispering. When he awoke, his heart raced, his body covered in sweat. Dr. Karim told him it was only stress, but her own hands shook as she wrote. Notes, something was reaching them, touching their minds, back on Earth. People watched the live feed. Millions stared at the images as the Dyson Sphere drew closer. It pulsed with light, massive panels shifting open and shut, like a giant mouth breathing in the dark. Every movement sent shivers across Earth, as if the whole planet felt its hunger. Then came the first transmission of horror, the Odyssey sent. Back footage of stars flickering and dying near the sphere. Dr. Monroe explained in a trembling voice, "It is pulling their energy, like veins draining blood." The camera shook as the crew gasped. Another star dimmed, vanished, gone forever. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Still, the crew moved closer. Obeying their orders, they deployed small drones, sending them into the glowing cracks of the structure. For a moment, Earth saw inside. An endless maze of tunnels, glowing rivers of energy. Walls shifting like muscles. It was alive, breathing, watching. Then, one by one, the drones went dark, cut off by static. Fear grew on the ship, but Elias Ward kept his voice steady. "We go on," he said. "The world is watching. We cannot stop." But inside, his hands clenched the controls until his knuckles turned white. They moved closer still, the Dyson Sphere filling every inch of their vision. It was no longer a structure, it was an abyss, a living night swallowing them whole. Suddenly, the ship shook. Alarms screamed. The hum grew louder, rattling their bones. Dr. Karim fell to her knees, clutching her head, crying out, "I can hear it. I can hear it inside my mind." Her voice cracked with terror, her eyes wide with madness. The others tried to calm her. But deep down, they felt it too. The sphere was not silent. It was speaking, whispering in thoughts, in dreams, in fear itself. Back on Earth, the feed flickered. Static filled screens. For a moment, the picture returned, showing the crew pale and trembling. Then one final scream pierced the speakers, and the transmission ended, silence crushing every home, every heart. The Odyssey was gone, swallowed by the darkness. NASA's control room froze. No one moved, no one spoke. Some stared at the blank screens. Others buried their faces in their hands. The mission had failed. Or worse, it had succeeded. For now, they knew the truth. The Dyson Sphere was alive, aware, and watching. And humanity had knocked on its door. The world waited for the Odyssey's return, but no return came. Screens stayed dark, radios silent. The voices of the crew lost in the endless void. Days passed, and people hoped for a miracle, but hope faded like dying starlight. Then, without warning, fragments of data began to arrive. Broken, distorted, but real. NASA worked night and day, piecing together the shattered signals. The engineers rebuilt images, the scientists decoded numbers. What they found made even the bravest tremble. The Dyson Sphere was not just a machine, it was alive. Its surface shifted like skin. Its tunnels moved like veins. It pulsed with energy like blood, through a beating heart. And worst of all, it was not standing still. Dr. Marcus Lee stood before the giant screen in the control room. His voice was low, heavy, trembling with dread. "The Dyson Sphere is moving," he said, "and its course is set toward the Milky Way." Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped their notebook. Another whispered a prayer. The truth was undeniable. The monster was not feeding only on Andromeda. It was coming for Earth. The leaked data spread like wildfire. Every news channel broadcast the words. Every headline screamed of doom. Alien sphere on path to our galaxy. Earth may be target. Panic surged through the world once more. Sharper, heavier, unstoppable. Governments tried to hide the details, but the truth could not be contained. In secret, leaders met with military generals. They spoke of weapons, of nuclear arsenals, of impossible defenses, but every calculation ended the same. No missile could reach it, no shield could block it. It was the size of a solar system, and it fed on suns. What weapon could fight a god inside? NASA, Dr. Helen Ruiz stared at the data until her eyes burned. She whispered, "It is not a machine, it is a predator." Her words spread across the control room like a curse. Predators do not build. Predators do not create. Predators hunt, consume, and move on. And humanity had just seen its shadow on the horizon. For ordinary people, the terror deepened. In crowded cities, riots broke out. Police struggled to hold back the tide. Shops burned, banks collapsed, streets filled with screams. Families fled to the countryside, dragging children and bags of supplies. Others locked their doors, hiding in fear. But fear could not be locked away. It lived in every heart. Religions declared the end of days. Some preached hope, others preached surrender. But all agreed on one truth. The stars were dying, and one day Earth's sun would be next. Children stopped looking at the sky with wonder. They looked at it with terror. Every twinkle felt like a countdown. Every shadow felt like a warning. Meanwhile, scientists searched for answers. Some begged governments to build arks, giant ships to carry humanity far from danger. Others demanded new weapons, weapons that could burn brighter than suns. But time was short, resources limited, and unity broken. Nations argued, blamed, accused each other of hiding secrets. While the Dyson Sphere moved silently closer, in the White House, the president held a press conference. He promised safety, promised protection. But his eyes betrayed him, wide with fear, red with sleepless nights. A single reporter dared to ask, "Can we survive this?" The president paused, his lips trembled. Then he said softly, "We will try." The words echoed across the world. Empty, fragile, hopeless. In small towns, families sat around old radios, listening to the updates. A father told his son, "Do not be afraid," but his voice cracked. The boy asked, "If it eats stars, will it eat us too?" The father had no answer, only silence. Silence heavier than death. Back at NASA, another revelation struck like lightning. Dr. Lee studied the pulses of energy, the strange signals sent from the sphere. At first, they thought it was noise, meaningless patterns. But then he saw it. A rhythm, a code, a message. "It is not just feeding," he said. "It is calling." The room went cold. Every heart froze. If it was calling, then it was not alone. There could be more. Hundreds. Thousands. A swarm of predators crossing the universe. The thought crushed hope completely. Humanity was not just facing one monster, but perhaps an entire species of them. If one could drain galaxies, what could 1,000 do? It was no longer survival. It was extinction. In one final report, NASA released the terrifying truth. The Dyson Sphere was alive, intelligent, and on the move. Its target was clear. Its hunger, endless. And humanity stood in its path like ants before a storm. The broadcast ended with silence. No words of comfort, no plan of rescue, no light of hope, only silence. And across the earth, billions of eyes turned to the night sky, wondering how long they had before the stars themselves betrayed them. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. The Dyson Sphere was alive, it was moving, and it was coming closer. Every news channel repeated the words, every headline screamed the same terror. The end felt near, and hope began to rot away. Cities turned into cages of fear. People ran through the streets with wild eyes, looting, shouting, desperate to grab anything that could make them feel safe. Markets collapsed. Banks shut their doors. Factories stopped working. The world's economy cracked like glass. Because money meant nothing in the shadow of death. What use was gold when sons were being eaten? In homes, families clung to each other. Some prayed louder than ever, hoping some god would hear their cries. Others sat in silence, staring at walls. Too broken to move, children asked simple questions that cut deeper than knives. Will the sun go out tomorrow? Will they take us too? No one had the courage to answer. Because every answer felt like a lie. Governments tried to act strong. Presidents and generals appeared on screens. Their faces pale, their voices heavy. They spoke of unity, of courage, of building something to defend Earth. But behind their eyes was the same fear every person felt. Behind their words was the same truth. There was no weapon that could fight something that devoured stars. Rumors spread like fire. Some said secret arcs were being built underground to save the rich and powerful. Others said world leaders were planning to abandon Earth, leaving billions behind. The poor looked at the sky with anger, while the rich dug deeper into bunkers. Humanity was splitting apart, not into nations anymore, but into those who could hide and those who could not. In churches, mosques, and temples, crowds filled every corner. Voices rose together in chants. Some begging for mercy, some praising the end as divine will. The faithful said this was the final test, but even their voices shook with fear. The non-believers mocked them, but their laughter was hollow, forced, desperate. No one was safe from the same shadow. Back at NASA, despair grew thicker each day. Dr. Marcus Lee stared at endless lines of data, numbers that felt like death sentences. Dr. Helen Ruiz no longer spoke much. She sat at her desk, eyes red, hands trembling. They had discovered the greatest truth of the universe, but instead of glory, it brought doom. Knowledge was supposed to save, but this knowledge only crushed. Late one night, Dr. Ruiz whispered. To her team, maybe it is better not to fight, she said, her voice breaking. Maybe we are just ants under the foot of giants. Some nodded, some argued, but deep inside, they all felt the same. Fighting a living Dyson Sphere was like shouting at a storm. Pointless, hopeless. The world outside reflected that despair. Riots grew into wars. Countries turned on each other. Accusing neighbors of hiding resources, missiles lit the night sky. Not against the sphere, but against one another. Old enemies rose again, fueled by fear. Humanity was crumbling, not under alien hands, but under its own weakness. In a small village, an old man watched the news with his grandchildren. He shook his head and said softly, "We are killing ourselves." Before it even arrives, the children held his hands, asking if there was any safe place. He looked at the stars and whispered, "There is no safe place. Not anymore. In cities, sirens screamed every night. People packed into shelters, though they knew shelters would not save them. Some refused to leave their homes, waiting quietly. For whatever came, others joined strange cults, bowing to the sphere as if it were a god. They painted symbols on walls, chanting that the coming darkness was salvation. For them, surrender was easier than hope, scientists who once dreamed of. The stars now destroyed their own work. Telescopes were smashed, research burned. They no longer wanted to look, no longer wanted to know. Knowledge had brought fear, and fear had broken their spirits. Yet, in the middle of collapse, small sparks of resistance still glowed, a handful. Of engineers and dreamers refused to give in. They gathered in secret, working on hidden projects. "We will not wait to die," they said. Their voices quiet but firm, but their numbers were too small. Their tools too weak against the hunger of the sphere. Their hope was a candle in a storm. Meanwhile, the Dyson Sphere grew brighter in the night sky. Even ordinary telescopes now showed its glow. It was no longer a secret, no longer a rumor. It was there, visible, undeniable, a second sun in the sky, but one that carried only death. On one final night, the world held its breath. Radio telescopes picked up another signal. It was deeper, clearer, more powerful than before. Every speaker on Earth shook with the sound. It was not a hum this time, not a whisper. It was a voice, sharp, cruel, endless. And the words froze blood in every vein. "We are near." Children screamed, mothers fainted, soldiers dropped their weapons. The message echoed across Earth. Louder than thunder, heavier than any war, hope cracked, courage collapsed. Faith shattered, billions of hearts beat as one in terror. The sphere was near, and nothing could stop it. The message had been clear. "We are near." Those three words shook the world more than any war. More than any disaster, the end was no longer a distant shadow. It was a hand reaching toward Earth, in the cities. People filled the streets like rivers of panic. Some cried, some prayed, some screamed at the sky. Shops and homes were abandoned. Cars blocked the highways. Everywhere was chaos. But the chaos came from the same truth. The predator was close, and there was no place to hide. Governments tried to maintain order, but even soldiers broke ranks. Some deserted their posts, choosing to be with their families. Others turned their weapons on crowds. Desperate to control the madness, the sound of gunfire mixed with sirens. The world collapsing in its final hours. Yet above all the noise, the sky glowed with the sphere's light. A second sun rising, but this sun promised only death inside. NASA silence filled the control room. Screens showed the sphere larger than ever, its black surface shining with rivers of fire. It was opening, shifting, as if preparing for something. Panels unfolded like the wings of a beast. Dr. Marcus Lee stood frozen, whispering, "It is waking." No one corrected him, because they all felt the same. The monster was stirring, and Earth was its prey. The last fragments of data from telescopes confirmed the worst. The Dyson Sphere was not drifting by chance. It was moving with purpose, slow but steady. And its path was locked on the Milky Way, on Earth's sun, on humanity itself. Dr. Helen Ruiz sat at her desk, tears streaming down. Her face, "We are ants to them," she said, "ants standing in front of fire." Her voice broke, her hands trembled. For all her life, she had chased the stars, dreamed of their beauty. Now those same stars were being eaten, one by one. Dreams had turned into nightmares. Around the world, despair became madness. Cults grew stronger, their followers chanting to the sphere as if it were a god. They danced in the streets, painting their bodies with ash and blood. They said the coming darkness was salvation, that Earth must surrender. Others hid in bunkers, clinging to survival kits as if they were shields. But deep down, Everyone knew. No wall, no prayer, no weapon could stop what was coming. The Dyson Sphere sent out another signal, louder, sharper. This time it came not as a hum, but as a voice. In every language, every speaker, every device, even radios long broken, came alive. The words echoed through the world. "We are here." Children screamed, mothers fainted, entire cities fell silent. The message cut deeper than fear itself. It meant the sphere had crossed the last distance. It meant the predator had arrived at the edge of Earth's sky. Telescopes confirmed what no one wanted to believe. The glow was visible to the naked eye, a black sphere burning with red veins. It hung in the night like an evil moon, growing larger. Every hour, people pointed with trembling fingers, whispering, "It's watching us." Even those who denied it before could not deny it now. The hunter had stepped into the light in a small home. A father held his son close. The boy asked, "Will they take our son now?" The father's lips trembled. No words came. All he could do was hold his child tighter, as if love alone could stop the darkness. Back at NASA, the final transmission arrived. Screens flickered, cameras shook, alarms blared. A picture came through, the sphere's surface cracking open like an egg. Inside was not light, but something darker, a swirling abyss, an endless storm of energy and shadows. And from that abyss, shapes began to move, giant silhouettes, sharp and unnatural. Not machines, not ships, but something alive, creatures born from the sphere itself. They were coming out. Dr. Lee's voice broke as he whispered, "It's not just one. It's an army." The room froze, hearts shattered. Hope died. The Dyson Sphere was not just alive. It was a nest releasing its children into the galaxy. On Earth, the broadcast reached every screen. Billions watched in horror as the shapes crawled into space, silent, massive. Glowing with the light of stolen suns, the sight froze humanity in terror. Some screamed, some fainted. Some fell to their knees in surrender, but most simply stared, unable to look away. Then came the final signal, a voice deeper than the universe itself. "We have fed, we have grown, now we take." The words shook the ground, rattled the skies, cracked hearts in two, and then silence. The screens went dark, the stars above flickered weakly. Earth stood still, billions waiting, billions trembling. The Dyson Sphere loomed above, its children spreading like shadows across the void. The countdown had ended, the hunt had begun.